Humanity, or at least human industrial civilization, might actually be cooked. I know there has been a lot of doomsday predictions in the past, the Y2K hysteria, the Mayan apocalypse in 2012, and of course the many times religious people such as the Christians have predicted the end times. However, now we have some data that suggests we may be in real trouble within our lifetimes. But what is it that will finally put an end to human industrial civilization? Some would say global nuclear war, but unless there is some freak accident, I think this is unlikely because the elites that run our civilization very much want to continue living and lording over us. Others would say that some rogue AI might end up destroying the world, but there may be some actual hard limits to AI development, and while I think AI could realistically wreak havoc on the job market in the short term, I am not so sure it will bring about the end of the world. So what is it? Well, some of you may disagree here and say this is kind of a normie answer, but basically I'd say civilization could collapse due to a combination of resource depletion, ecological overshoot, and climate change. Hear me out, there is a lot of evidence backing this, so let's talk about it. Despite us feeling disconnected from nature, human industrial civilization actually relies on a healthy biosphere to function. That said, it doesn't at all work in harmony with the natural world. For example, we barely recycle a fraction of the resources we consume. Most of the products of industry end up in a landfill somewhere after they are no longer useful. But in nature, a lot of the resources from dead organisms get recycled and reused by living organisms in the cycle of life. What makes this worse is our infinite growth-based economic model. Basically, it functions on debt and interest, which means we must constantly keep growing the economy to pay the interest on the debt. If there is no growth, then that results in economic pain. First we have a recession, then a depression, and if there is no growth even after that, or even negative growth, the whole economic system could collapse. But in order to grow the economy, we need to buy and sell more physical or digital products and services on the market. This requires us to constantly increase our consumption of finite resources and energy. Yes, even digital products and services need physical data centers to operate, which consume a lot of energy and water for cooling, among other things. In recent years, there has been a push for increasing our usage of green energy, such as solar and wind power. But despite impressive growth in the renewable energy sector, around 80% of our primary energy consumption is still from fossil fuels like oil, coal, and natural gas. While we will never completely run out of fossil fuels, they will become increasingly expensive to extract from the ground. At some point, it just won't be worth it anymore to use them. It also seems that peak oil may have happened in November 2018, and we could soon start to see a decline in global oil production, although AI advancements may kick the can down the road for a few more years. But what if we replace fossil fuels with nuclear power, for example? Even if that were possible, which I don't think it is, it would just delay the inevitable unless our infinite growth economic model is fundamentally changed. But for example, replacing all fossil fuel energy production with nuclear power would require us to build up to 20,000 new nuclear reactors. Currently, there are only around 440 reactors worldwide, and they are not cheap to build, nor do we have enough nuclear engineers to do it. Then there's also the problem of uranium. According to the World Nuclear Association, since 1945, we have consumed around 3.1 million tons of uranium, and according to their estimates, there is about 5.9 million tons of recoverable uranium left. But even if we double that figure, with thousands of new reactors running, it wouldn't last very long at all. Basically, there is no green transition. While fossil fuel consumption may decline in Western countries, it has increased elsewhere in the world. We are simply adding solar and wind power into the energy mix to get the most energy production possible so that the global economy can grow. The only thing that significantly decreased fossil fuel consumption recently was the pandemic, so goals like net zero by 2050 without a global economic collapse is kind of a pipe dream, barring some miraculous inventions like fusion power coming into play. Eventually, we will run into some hard limits to growth. During the Second World War, the US military deployed some troops to St. Matthew Island in the Bering Sea. and they brought with them a bunch of reindeer for food. Once the war was over, the soldiers left the island, but they didn't take the reindeer with them. With no natural predators on the island, the reindeer population exploded until they had consumed all the food, and then they died from starvation. This is one example of ecological overshoot, which we may also face. Due to the growth of human industrial civilization, we have significantly damaged the environment with pollution such as forever chemicals and microplastics, as well as human-driven land use changes like strip mining, industrial agriculture, and urbanization. The first Earth Overshoot Day happened in the early 1970s. That's the day of the year when human civilization has consumed more resources than the Earth regenerates. We have become more efficient at resource consumption, but we are still eating up and degrading the fundamentals of the biosphere that sustains human life on Earth. It's like we have money in the bank account that accrues interest over time, but we are spending not only the interest but also the funds on the account. Since 1970, there has been a 69% drop in the Earth's wildlife populations according to the Living Planet Index. In the past 30 years, the world's insect populations have declined by around 75%. Currently, only 4 to 6% of the world's mammalian biomass is wildlife, the rest is livestock and humans. The ocean fish populations have declined by around 87% between 2003 and 2019, most likely due to overfishing and environmental changes like ocean acidification and warmer waters from global warming. The average background extinction rate has normally been between 10 to 100 species per year. Now it is around 27,000 species per year according to some estimates. Basically, we are in the midst of a mass extinction event, and most people know nothing about it. Probably the last nail in the coffin for human industrial civilization could be climate change. As I already mentioned, we have to consume more and more energy and natural resources to keep economic growth going. As we do this, we burn a lot of fossil fuels for energy, which, as you may know, releases carbon dioxide or CO2 and other greenhouse gases into the atmosphere. As the concentration of these greenhouse gases increases, more heat from the sun is trapped inside the atmosphere. It's kind of like your body heat is trapped underneath a blanket, and the thicker the blanket is, the warmer it gets. Current CO2 levels are at around 420 parts per million, which hasn't happened since the Pliocene era 3 to 5 million years ago, according to geological evidence. Back then, the average temperature of the Earth was around 2 to 3 degrees Celsius higher than it is today, and sea levels were up to 25 meters higher. But if we add other greenhouse gases like methane and nitrous oxide to the calculation, then our greenhouse gas forcing effect is at around the equivalent of 570 parts per million of CO2. During the Permian extinction event, volcanic eruptions released several thousand gigatons of CO2 into the atmosphere over thousands of years. This caused the average temperature to increase by about 5 degrees Celsius. Eventually, this warming triggered undersea frozen methane hydrates to destabilize, which released massive amounts of methane into the atmosphere, warming the planet by another 5 degrees Celsius. Around 90 to 95% of life on Earth went extinct during this extinction event. Currently, we are releasing similar amounts of CO2 in only around 200 years, especially if you count the effect of land use changes. This increase is too fast for many plants and animals to adapt, which may supercharge extinction rates going forward. Basically, scientists warn of catastrophic effects if warming continues or accelerates, especially past 2 degrees Celsius above the pre-industrial average. The climate will become more unstable and unpredictable, leading to more droughts, floods, and other natural disasters. This will likely cause problems for food production and may lead to increasing amounts of climate refugees, causing more social and economic problems. So you might think we should just reduce or eliminate our fossil fuel production as fast as possible, right? Not so fast, bucko. Doing this has at least two major problems. The first problem is that our current industrial and societal infrastructure is based on fossil fuels. Abruptly stopping the usage of fossil fuels would likely result in global economic collapse, which would be followed by civil unrest, wars, and famine. As I said previously, the last time fossil fuel consumption declined significantly was during the pandemic. Imagine a continuous pandemic that gets worse and worse every year, lasting for several decades. People would likely fight to use fossil fuels once again, despite the consequences, like some sort of drug addict facing withdrawal symptoms. The second problem is the aerosol masking effect. When we burn fossil fuels, we release not only greenhouse gases, but also sulfur particles that actually cool the planet significantly. They help to form clouds and reflect solar radiation back into space. It's kind of like we are standing under an umbrella on a sunny day. We feel less hot than standing directly in the sunshine. So abruptly reducing fossil fuel usage would actually increase global warming unless we start doing some kind of geoengineering to replace the cooling effect of the sulfur particles. Basically, problems have solutions, but we are in a predicament with no solutions. The continuation of human industrial civilization hinges on the ability to grow grains at scale to feed the global population and keep society stable. Resource depletion, ecological overshoot, and climate change will gradually and continually chip away at our ability to do this. I don't expect civilization to collapse due to a one-off event, but instead over many years it will experience death by 1,000 cuts, although some countries could also experience a more accelerated collapse. Basically, collapse has already begun, but how long it will take before the world is entirely unrecognizable is anyone's guess. And I didn't even get into the few dozen or so self-reinforcing feedback loops of climate change that may have already, with our current amount of emissions and warming, put this whole thing far outside of our control. So even if we were able to stop all human greenhouse gas emissions, it's possible some amount of global warming would still continue for decades or centuries. Remember to like and subscribe, let me know your thoughts in the comments. See you in the next video. Okay, thanks, bye.